Chapter 21. The boarding party time. Day 20 post-lock location. The river line, the Necropolis deck invasion. Clock, T plus 18 hours early. The inside of the CH-47 Chinook, call sign Big Iron, was a special kind of hell. It was a metal box, lurching through an apocalypse, filled with the thunder of its own rotors, the shriek of magic, and the high-altitude wind whipping through the open rear ramp. Major Boone Hennessy was strapped into a web seat, his knuckles white as he gripped his rifle. Across from him, Captain Cole and his Rangers sat with the practiced, terrifying calm of men who did this for a living. Wedged between them was the massive, silent form of Sergeant Boren, the Beluga mercenary, who simply looked bored. "Kestrel to Big Iron? Hard port!" "Hard port!" The Sentinel's voice crackled over the internal comms, sharp and urgent. "Deflecting word, Lance, starboard flank." The Chinook's pilot didn't hesitate. He slammed the helicopter into a sickening 90-degree bank. Boone's stomach tried to exit his throat as the entire 50,000-pound machine seemed to drop sideways. Through the portside gunner's window, he saw a streak of brilliant green energy, a word lance thick as a telephone pole, slice through the air where they had been a split second before. "Good deflect, Kestrel!" the pilot yelled. "Rhodes' distraction is working. The flak is heavy but unfocused. They're just throwing everything they have." Outside, Kestrel and his two Morvain Sentinels were a blur of silver armor and black feathers, flying a tight, chaotic escort. They were the helicopter's guardian angels, intercepting the ship-killer spells that would have ended the assault instantly. But they couldn't stop everything. "Minor contacts. Archers on the galleon below," the co-pilot warned. A volley of arrows, glowing with a faint, sizzling energy, rained up at them. Most funked harmlessly against the helicopter's armored belly, but several shot through the open ramp. One slammed into a Ranger's composite chest plate, knocking him breathless. Another embedded itself in the cabin wall, inches from Line's head. The Volpari Magister didn't even flinch. She was strapped in near the ramp, her eyes closed, her fur bristling, her hands weaving complex patterns in the air. She was a living countermeasure, her small personal wards deflecting the minor magic and energy static that bled off the larger attacks. "Target acquired." The pilot's voice went flat. "We're approaching the Necropolis. Kestrel, the shroud." Bone looked out the ramp. The flagship was a flying mountain of scrap iron and screaming smokestacks, its shroud of unbeing shimmering around it like a heat haze of pure, cold nothing. "I will create the opening." Kestrel's voice came back, strained. "This will be turbulent. Brace." The helicopter plunged forward. The moment it hit the shroud, the world dissolved. The lights in the cabin died. The thumping of the rotors was drowned out by a deafening, tearing static, and a wave of pure psychic cold washed over the cabin. It felt like dying. The helicopter dropped, lurching violently, every bolt straining. Then, they were through. The chaos vanished, replaced by the Necropolis's own internal engine thrum. They were inside the shield, hovering 10 meters above a vast black iron deck slick with necrotic slime. A few skeletal crew members, armed with pikes, stared up in dumb shock. "Ramp down," Captain Cole roared, his voice cutting through the sudden quiet. "Go, go, Bo! Form a perimeter on me." The Rangers hit the deck first, their rifles already firing, cutting down the skeletal crew. Sergeant Boren landed with a clang that shook the deck, followed by the Isengrim shock troops, who formed a heavy wedge. "Big Iron, hold this position." Cole yelled back to the pilot, "Light 'em up!" The Chinook's side-mounted miniguns opened up, their burt a deafening, comforting sound as they suppressed any movement from the ship's superstructure. "Breaching team on that main hatch," Cole ordered, pointing his rifle toward a massive, rune-etched iron door leading to the lower decks. "We find the emitter. We plant the charges." He was cut off by a new sound. It wasn't the battle outside or the helicopter's engines. It was a heavy, rhythmic hiss-clank, hisses-clank that was vibrating up through their boots. The main cargo hatch in the center of the deck, a 20-foot-wide circular plate, began to grind open, venting plumes of acrid green-black steam. "Contacts!" a ranger yelled, aiming his rifle. "Heavy!" A massive figure rose from the steam-filled pit. It was brewing, or what was left of her. Her left arm was gone, replaced by a massive, steam-piston-driven siege claw of blackened iron. Her right leg had been sheared off at the hip, and in its place was a heavy, three-toed mechanical strut that hiss-clanked on the deck with terrifying force. Her fur was stitched with arcane wire, and her one remaining eye glowed with the same cold, blue light as Mortis Rex's. She was a walking siege engine, a perfect, monstrous fusion of flesh, iron, and necrotic will. The boarding party froze, their rifles and magic suddenly seeming like toys. General Bruham, the newly perfected general, stood at her full, towering height. She looked at the helicopter, at the rangers, and at the Ghana-brain warriors. She raised her new iron siege claw, which whined as it flexed, and let out a sound that was half a bear's roar and half a steam whistle's shriek. The assault had begun. Chapter 22. The Siege Engine. Time: Day 20 post-lock location. The River Line. The Necropolis Deck Invasion Clock. Key plus 18 hours General Bruin's roar. Half bear, half steam whistle was the only command needed. Aboard Big Iron, the two-door gunners didn't wait for an order. Reacting with pure instinct, they swiveled their miniguns and focused their fire directly on the massive cybernetic Belugard. A stream of 7.62mm rounds, thousands per minute, slammed into Bruin's chest and new, iron-plated limbs. The sound was a deafening ping-ping-ping clang as the bullets sparked, ricocheted, or flattened harmlessly against the arcane-fused metal. Bruin didn't even flinch. She simply raised her head, her one glowing blue eye narrowing in annoyance. The minigun fire was nothing more to her than a hailstorm, loud, stinging, but ultimately trivial. The contemptuous grunt, she didn't swat the delicate rotors. She swiped at the fuselage itself. Her massive siege claw, powered by necrotic fuel pistons, slammed into the side of the helicopter, just aft of the minigun port. The metal screamed and buckled. The impact sheared a main hydraulic line and, more critically, tore a massive piece of the fuselage plating loose. A 2-foot-wide chunk of aluminum was instantly sucked into the massive roaring intake of the aft engine. The result was immediate. A catastrophic bang screech as the engine's turbines shredded themselves on the metal debris. The Chinook lurched violently, losing half its power. "We've lost Engine 2! Flame out! Flame out!" the pilot screamed over the intercom. "We're going down! Brace!" The pilot fought the controls, executing a high-speed emergency set-down. The helicopter slammed onto the Necropolis deck, its landing gear absorbing most of the impact with a heavy metallic groan. But it held. The damaged aft engine went dead. The pilot, fearing a fire, immediately shut down the remaining forward engine, plunging the cabin into a sudden, terrifying silence, broken only by the hiss-clank of Bruin's approach. "Everyone out! 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 Out!" Captain Cole bellowed, unstrapping and kicking the side door open. The combined Alpha-Gamma team spilled onto the deck, their ears ringing. Miraculously, the cabin was intact. "Pilot! Status!" Cole yelled toward the cockpit. The pilot's voice, shaky but alive, came back. "We're down. Aft engine it's gone. Chewed itself to pieces. Main hydraulics are leaking all over the deck. But the forward engine is green. The drivetrain and rotors look intact. Theoretically, if we can stop that leak and get the forward turbine lit, we might be able to hop. But we are not combat effective. Forget the hop. Just stay alive," Boone Hennessy yelled, leveling his shotgun at the advancing monstrosity. "Get to cover!" The deck was a chaotic landscape of thick pipes, raised platforms, and pressurized steam vents. The soldiers scattered, taking cover behind the iron topography. "Engage! All units, focus fire, Cole commanded. The deck erupted in a storm of multidimensional warfare. The Rangers' rifles cracked, their specialized rounds seeking gaps in Bruin's new armor. The Isengrim shock troops hurled orbs of crackling energy, while Sergeant Boren, the Balagard, roared his own challenge, firing a heavy rune-etched machine gun from the hip. It didn't matter. Bruin advanced with the relentless, casual confidence of a shark. She ignored the rifle fire completely. An Isengrim's lightning orb struck her iron shoulder, sizzling and dissipating with no effect. She simply walked through the wall of firepower. "It's not working, Captain!" a ranger yelled, reloading. "We're just wasting ammo. She's tanking everything." Bruin's one blue eye settled on Sergeant Boren. She recognized a fellow Balugard. With a grunt of contempt, she raised her siege claw and fired a high-pressure jet of scalding green-black steam from a nozzle on her wrist, forcing Boren to dive behind a ventilation housing. "Line, can you stop this thing?" Boone yelled, ducking as Bruin's mechanical leg kicked a 2-ton iron crate at his position. "Her armor is fused with necrotic dampening wards," the Volpari Magister called back, her own energy blasts flaring uselessly against Bruin's hide. "It's designed to absorb word. My magic is feeding it." They were trapped. They were on the flagship, inside the shroud, with an unkillable enemy, and a ride was badly damaged. Captain Cole, his face a mask of grim calculation, ducked behind the wrecked tail of the Chinook. He keyed his command channel, not to the pilot, but to Accord C in C Center far below. "Accord Command, this is Spartan. We are on the necropolis, but we are pinned. The enemy has deployed a single, heavy, cybernetic thing that is impervious to all small arms and magic. We cannot hold this position, and we cannot get to the emitter." He paused, watching Bruin lift a ranger by his leg and toss him into a bulkhead. "Command," Cole said, his voice tight. "Our Viper flight's F-22 still in the air. I need to know if they have any ordnance that can crack this thing from the outside. We can't kill it from in here." General Rhodes's voice crackled back instantly, strained and loud. "Spartan, this is Rhodes. Viper 1 has a plan. He can't target that thing from here, but he thinks he can hit the ship. He's going to try to overload the shroud." "How?" Cole yelled, rolling as Bruin's claw smashed the piece of cover he'd just been using. "A saturation run. He's climbing to Angels 4-0 for a supersonic dive. He's going to empty his 20mm Vulcan and a full rocket pod straight into the top of the shroud, directly over your position. He's hoping the sheer kinetic volume will pop the shield and punch through to the deck." "Jesus," Boone yelled, overhearing the comms. "That's not surgical. That's a damn apocalypse. He'll hit us all." "That's the risk, Major," Rhodes's voice crackled. "You've got to get your people clear of that deck. Viper is on his run. ETA, 10 minutes. Get out of there, Cole." Cole slammed his hand against the side of the Chinook, silencing the comms. He sprinted to the cockpit and grabbed the pilot by his vest. "New plan. You heard him. We have 10 minutes before our own flyboys turn this deck into a scrapyard." "Sir, the hydraulics are shot," the co-pilot yelled, his hands already a blur of motion over the auxiliary panel. "We can't get pressure." "You have 5 minutes," Cole said, his voice dropping to a low, lethal calm. "In 5 minutes, if this bird is not in the air, I am personally ordering Sentinel Hestral to grab me and Major Hennessy, and we are leaving every last one of you here. Am I clear?" Boom Hennessy, who'd run up behind him, just stared. "Hey! The hell you are!" Cole didn't even look at him. His eyes were locked on the terrified, furious pilot. 5 minutes. Make it happen, soldier. The pilot's jaw tightened. He just nodded, his face a mask of grease and sweat, and turned back to the console. "Get me a patch kit and 2 volunteers, now!" Cole turned back to the chaotic firefight, slapping a fresh magazine into his rifle. "All right, you glorious bastards," he roared. "Buy us 5 minutes. Keep that thing distracted." Chapter 23. 5 minutes time. Day 20 post-lock location. The river line, the Necropolis deck invasion clock. T plus 18 hours. 5 minutes. Cole's voice was a death sentence. The firefight was a death sentence. The firefight was a chaotic, desperate holding action. Ruin, unstoppable, was methodically tearing apart their cover, her siege core ripping through steam pipes and iron crates with terrifying ease. Captain Cole, Major Boone Hennessy, and Lyne scrambled behind the relative safety of the Chinook's buckled fuselage. In the cockpit, the arrest from the night of the Captain Ken, of what sounded and scented me in the tree. "That thing's a fortress," Boone panted, reloading his shotgun. "And we're out of time. We can't pin her." "Not pin," Lyne hissed, her fox-like ears flat against her skull. Her yellow eyes scanned the deck, not at Bruin, but at the ship itself. "Look at her! The steam vents! She uses them. She's drawing power and pressure for her claw." "So we shut them off?" Cole asked. "No," Lyne said, a grim, predatory smile splitting her muzzle. "We overload them." "Kestrel!" she yelled into her comms. "I need a surgical strike. On my mark, I want you to rupture the main pressure conduit directly under her mechanical leg." "What good does that do?" Boone demanded. "It will either scald the joint or, more likely, create a massive plume of steam." "It will blind her," Lyne explained. "While she's blind, Boren and the Rangers hit her mechanical leg all at once from the same side to unbalance her." "Cole, your explosives." "My team can't get close enough to plant them," Cole said, his face grim. "They don't have to," Lyne said. "Just throw them. Not at her. Behind her. We are not trying to kill her. We are trying to herd her, push her away from the helicopter." Cole nodded, instantly grasping the plan. "It's a feint, a 3-part distraction. Kestrel, Boren, Rangers, do it." He turned back to Boone. "Get your ass to the cockpit. Help those pilots." "The hell I will. I'm a brawler, not a mechanic," Boone roared. "Your command," Cole snapped back. "If they fail, you're the only one who can call in that airstrike to save them. Go." Boone hesitated, then cursed and scrambled into the helicopter's cabin. "Kestrel, now," Lyne commanded. From the dark sky above, Sentinel Kestrel, flying like a silver and black missile, dove inside the shroud. He fired a single, brilliant lance of weird energy. It struck the deck plating directly beneath Bruin's mechanical strut. The iron plate, superheated, exploded upward. A geyser of raw, scalding steam erupted, enveloping Bruin in a blinding white cloud. She roared in surprised rage, her one blue eye useless in the fog. "Now!" Boring. Cole yelled. Sergeant Boren, the massive Balagard, burst from cover, firing his heavy machine gun not at Bruin's indestructible torso, but at her mechanical knee joint. The Rangers' rifles joined in, a concentrated stream of kinetic impacts on the same spot. Bruin, blinded in her leg joint suddenly frozen by the steam and hammered by gunfire, stumbled, her mechanical leg buckling. "Explosives! Now!" Paul yelled, hurling his own satchel charge behind the staggering cyberbear. The rest of his team followed suit. The charges detonated. The concussive force, coming from her rear, pushed Bruin forward, off balance. She crashed to one knee, her siege claws smashing into the deck, trapped for a moment by her own unbalanced weight. "That's our window!" Cole screamed. "Everyone, back to the bird! Back to Big Iron!" In the cockpit, Boone saw the monster go down. "Pilot, now! Give it hell! Hydraulics patched!" the pilot yelled back. "Spinning! Hold on!" The forward engine roared to life. The massive rotors began to thwack, thrack, frack, thumping slowly as they gathered speed. The helicopter, shuddering violently, began to lift, its ramp still down. The team sprinted. Lyne, Boren, the Rangers. Cole was the last in the line, firing his rifle backward as he ran. Owen Hennessy, his job in the cockpit done, ran back to the ramp to help pull his men aboard. "Come on, Cole, move your ass!" Just as Cole dove for the ramp, Bruin let out a final, volcanic roar. She had recovered. She was on her feet and swinging, her massive siege call propelled by pistons, lashed out. It wasn't aimed at the helicopter. It was aimed at the man on the ramp. "Boone, look out!" Cole yelled. Boone didn't have time to move. The iron claw, big as a car engine, slammed into the ramp, missing Cole but catching Boone Hennessy. It didn't grab him, it smashed him, crushing his leg against the bulkhead and flinging him backward into the cabin. Boone screamed, a raw, agonizing sound. "He's in! Go! Go!" Cole roared, scrambling over Boone's twisted form as he and Line grabbed the ramp's manual winch. Boone, his face pale and slick with sweat, looked down at his leg. It was a ruin, his foot at an impossible angle. He tried to push himself up, his rifle still in his hands. "Leave me," he choked out, trying to crawl back toward the ramp. "I'll hold him." "Get out of here." "Shut up, Major," Cole grunted, grabbing his vest. Line was already there. She ignored Boone's protests, her Volpari eyes cold and analytic. She looped her arms under his tack vest and dragged him bodily to the center of the cabin as Cole finally sealed the ramp. Big Iron lurched, its single engine screaming as it cleared the deck. Below them, Brewing raised her claw, roaring in frustration. They were airborne. They were alive. They were in a crippled, barely functional helicopter, with a 10-minute apocalypse screaming down from the heavens, and one of their leaders was now gravely wounded. Chapter 24. Out of the Frying Pan. Time. Day 20 post-lock location. The River Line. The Necropolis deck. Invasion clock. T plus 18 hours. The crippled Chinook, flying on one screening engine, clawed for altitude. Below them, the necropolis was a sprawling map of black iron, and Bruin was a single, furious mechanical speck, already being swarmed by her own skeletal crew. Inside the cabin, the mood was desperate, not triumphant. "Get a tourniquet on that!" Captain Cole roared, pointing at Boone Hennessy. Line was already there, her sharp Volpari claws ripping Boone's tactical pants open at the thigh. She applied a tourniquet with brutal, efficient speed, ignoring the Major's agonized curse. "Cord command! This is Spartan." Cole yelled into his helmet mic. "We are off the necropolis. I repeat, we are airborne and moving west, away from the target." General Rhodes's voice was a burst of static-laced relief. "Solid copy, Spartan. You are a goddamn hero. Get to the river line. Vibraflight is on its final run. Airstrike is in 7 minutes. Get clear." 7 minutes, the pilot yelled from the cockpit. "We're not going to make it." As if summoned by his fear, a deafening bang shook the entire airframe, like a giant had punched them from below. The helicopter dropped 50 feet in a gut-wrenching lurch, and every alarm in the cockpit blared at once. "We lost it!" "The patch blew!" the co-pilot shrieked. "We've lost primary hydraulics!" The helicopter nosed over, entering an uncontrolled dive. Boone, Line, and the Rangers were thrown against their straps in a moment of pure, weightless terror. "System 2! Engage! Engage!" the pilot bellowed, fighting the dead controls. With a heavy, shuddering thud, the backup system caught. The pilot grunted with the strain, pulling the stick with all his strength, and the dive slowly, sluggishly, corrected into a level, but terrifyingly unstable, flight. "Captain!" The pilot's voice was tight with panic. "System 1 is gone. We're on our last backup, and it's already flashing red. We are not going to make it to the river. We have to set this bird down now." Cole looked out the side door. Below them was Mortis's endless, shambling army of the dead, all marching toward the river. Setting down was a death sentence. "No!" Boone Hennessy roared, his face pale with pain. "Look up, not down! The F-22s!" "They're still focused on the flagship." Cole's eyes snapped to the sky. Boone was right. The 4 F-22s were high above, positioning for their attack run, their focus entirely on the necropolis. The rest of the Shadowgrass fleet, the smaller steam galleons, were scattering, giving the flagship a wide berth. They were unmolested. "Pilot," Cole commanded. "Get us up, not down. Kestrel, are you with us?" The Sentinel's calm voice cut through the chaos. "What is your vector?" Cole pointed at the nearest largest ship, a heavy-set galleon with a smoking boiler, clearly damaged from the earlier F-18 fight. It was trying to limp away from the battle. "That one," Cole ordered. "The damaged escort. It's our new ride home." "Sir," the pilot said, his voice incredulous, "that is an enemy vessel." "And it's the only one we've got," Cole said, chambering a fresh round. "It's that, or we get vaporized by our own air support. Get us on that deck, soldier, now." The pilot didn't argue. He wrestled the sluggish, dying controls, and the crippled Chinook abandoned its flight toward the river. It banked hard, trailing a plume of hydraulic fluid, and began a desperate, lurching ascent toward the enemy. "Kestrel," Cole yelled. "Clear the deck for us! We're coming in hard!" "Acknowledged, Spartan," the Morvane's voice replied. Clearing the porch. Through the windscreen, they saw the 3 Sentinels break from their escort pattern and dive-bomb the galleon, their word lances firing, skittering the skeletal crew on its upper deck. Captain Cole turned to his bruised, battered, and bleeding team. "All right," he said, his voice a grim, feral growl. "We just escaped hell. Now we're going to steal it. Breach on my mark. This time, we don't leave till we own the ship." Chapter 25. Hostile Takeover Time. Day 20 post-lock location. The River Line. The Necropolis deck invasion clock. T+, 18 hours late. The crippled CH-47 Chinook slammed onto the deck of the steam galleon with a sound like a collapsing building. The landing gear, not designed for an unpowered high-G impact, buckled, and the helicopter skidded 20 feet before crashing to a halt against a large iron-plated ventilation housing, its one remaining engine whining into silence. For a moment, there was only the sound of stressed metal and the distant, high-altitude scream of the F-22s. "We're down," Captain Cole roared, unstrapping and kicking open the side door. "Everyone out! We own this deck! Go, go, go!" The team, bruised but alive, spilled onto the deck. The skeletal crew that Kestrel had scattered were already reforming, their pikes lowered. "Bridge team, on me!" Cole commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Kestrel, Boren, Rangers were taking the helm. Everyone else, we're guard. Secure the Chinook. That's our only way home if this goes south." As Cole led the main assault force toward the forward superstructure, Major Boone Hennessy tried to follow, dragging his ruined leg. He let out a choked, agonized gasp and collapsed against the Chinook's fuselage, his rifle clattering to the deck. "Major!" Line was at his side instantly, shoving his rifle back into his hands. "You are rearguard! Hold this position!" "My leg," Boone grunted, his face pale and slick with sweat. "It's gone." "Not yet," Line said, her Volpari features a mask of pure, cold concentration. She was joined by Sparks and another engineer, who formed a perimeter, their rifles pointed at the dark recesses of the ship. Line didn't waste time on sentiment. She took her dagger and sliced Boone's pant leg open from ankle to thigh. The sight was a ruin of splintered bone, shredded muscle, and dark, arterial blood. Sparks, glancing over, had to look away. "You are correct, Major," Line said, her voice flat and analytical. "You will not be walking on this leg again, but you will not die from it, not today." She placed her hands on either side of the wound. A soft, icy blue word energy, smelling of ozone and cold, began to glow from her palms. She wasn't healing him. She was sealing him. The blue light wove itself around the mangled limb like a wire, the bleeding instantly slowing, then stopping as the energy flash cauterized the smaller vessels and constricted the main artery. The raw, exposed nerves were encased in the same magical frost. Boone, who had been bracing for a fresh wave of agony, let out a ragged sigh as the pain just vanished. It was replaced by a dull, throbbing numbness. It is a weird stasis, Line explained, never looking up from her work. It will hold the blood, and it will hold the pain. It is not a repair. It is a plug. It will last a few hours, at most. Now, she said, finishing the weave, your rifle, Major. You are still a soldier. Guard this bird. Boone stared at his leg, now encased in a faint, shimmering blue aura. He could still feel the weight of it, but the fire was gone. He looked at Line, his expression a mix of awe and grim respect. He nodded, raised his rifle, and aimed it at the deck. Still a soldier, he repeated. Boom! Boo! Boom! A series of deafening rolling thunderclaps shook the sky. The F-22s had begun their attack. The entire team looked up, watching as silent payloads streaked into the necropolis miles away, and the deck below blossomed into a flower of fire and debris.
Holy Mother of God, Sparks whispered, awestruck. Captain Cole, now is your chance.
Line yelled into her comms. The ship is in chaos! Strike the bridge! On it! Cole's voice crackled back, followed by the sound of a controlled explosion as his rangers breached the forward hatch. The battle for the galleon's bridge was shockingly fast. Cole's team, moving with the brutal efficiency of a Special Forces raid, hit the bridge guard before they'd even registered the F-22 attack. The fight was a blur of close-quarters gunfire and Sergeant Boren's unstoppable Beluga rage. In less than a minute, it was over. Cole stood on the bridge, his boot on the chest of the dead Isengrim captain. Kistrel and his rangers were covering the stairwell, while Boren held the 4 surviving crew members, 2 terrified Scannock Ratmen, and 2 sullen Isengrim engineers, against a control panel. The bridge is ours, Cole reported into his comms, his voice flat. Line, sit tight. We just need to figure out how to fly this thing.